Hi, I'm Sen and welcome to this video on adding a slideshow template to a web page. In this video, we are going to create this section here on the web page, and we'll be focusing on the HTML and CSS required for it. That is, we are looking at the design aspect, but not the functionality of it. That is for another video. So let's get into it. Okay, time for some standard housekeeping before we start. So if you don't already know, this video is part of the Into the Wild Easy Build series. If you haven't watched the other videos, it might be a good idea to do so, and the link for the series should be appearing about now. If you are completely new to this channel but want to have the same setup as me, then please look at the Getting Started series of videos, which should also be showing up about now. And that will sort you out with a local web server, as well as all the applications that we are using for this video. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. It's okay. You didn't hurt my feelings, and I've still got your back. The resources that you need to follow along for this video is in the description below. If you haven't done the series, then you'll need the web files link and the images from Unsplash. If you have followed along and done the last video in the series, then you've already got the images, then you have everything you need already. Now, this slideshow that we're going to create can become functional with either pure CSS or, which is more common, with some JavaScript. But there is a series en route to cover all of that. Like I say, that's not what we're looking at in this video. This video is focused on the initial build of it so that it looks nice within our web page. So looking at the slideshow that we designed in Figma, we can see we have an image with some text, and then we've got these little circles here at the bottom, which I'm sure you've seen on other websites that act as a form of navigation between the different slides. In a well-designed site, the image and the text would actually just be a single image together, which has been created in their favorite graphics application. But why make our lives easier? Let's go for the worst case scenario where everything is separate, and we can prove that it still works. The other thing we should note is that the slideshow is actually behind the navigation that we see up here. Now, you may think this looks good, and I think it looks all right, but it does cause some issues, but we'll come across those and deal with them when we get there. Since we're here, we can also actually check the dimensions by looking at the grey boxes that we made with it before. So we turn that on and we can see the size of our main advert is 1500 wide and 800 high. And we can also have a look at the images. Now, not too worried about the width and height values, but X and Y might be a bit handy in trying to work out where to place it. So as we said, we've got an image, we've got some text, and then we've got these little circles. If you're wondering if we're going to be using some graphics to create these, then nope, we're not. We're actually going to be using a nav tag with some anchors inside, and these are going to be the actual live anchors themselves. So as we said before, let's get into it. So here we are in the index.php page, and again, if you don't want to be messing about with the PHP, there will be a HTML file for you to work with as well. But our slideshow will actually be at the top here above the large card. So let's add the section for that. So you can see we've added a class of main ad because, well, it is an advert. We could have called it slideshow, but main ad will do us as well. And then the next thing we want to do is to add in the H2 tag, which will create the actual text for us. So the next thing we want to do is use a H2 element to hold the text that we saw. So here is our H2 element, and as you can see, we've got a class of main add underscore text. So we're still using the BEM naming method, and we've just got the simple text here. Now, as always, I like adding little challenges in my videos so you can flex your brain muscles. So let's see if you can write out the HTML for the next bit, which will be for the links themselves. So here are the things that you need to know in order to build it. It is a type of navigation, so the container element will be a nav element. The nav element should have a class of main add _, links with an S. We want 5 empty links with an href of hash and a class of main -add _, link, no S. And then finally, one of the links should also have a class of main -add _, link, -active, as that will be the modifier to represent the slide which is active. So I recommend you pause the video now, as I'm going to show you the solution in 3, 2, 1, now. So here we have the emit code to save us a little bit of typing time. I'll just press enter. And of course, as always, we need to clean that up. So here it is tidied up, and as well, you can see I've added that active one that we required as well. So let's kind of have a look at what it looks like. It should come as no surprise that it doesn't really look like anything, if we're honest. The default H2 tag is here, but it's in the color green, so we can't see it properly unless we highlight it. Since the links themselves have no content and no CSS rules really being applied to them, they are empty and have disappeared. So obviously we're going to need to use some CSS in order to be able to see it. And then this raises the next question, which is where should we put the CSS? Does it go into, say, the base CSS? Does it go into the card CSS? Or does it go somewhere else? Well, for this one, we're actually going to put it into its own CSS file, which means we've got to create the CSS file. And of course, we need to link the two together as well. So here we are in index.php, and you can see I've added the link to the Slideshow CSS, and I've added it here, obviously in the CSS folder. And of course, it is currently empty. So the first step here is to format the main tag element, which is main add itself. And that includes adding the background image. So this is the code that we need. As you can see, we've got the class of main add. We've added the width and height, but we've done it in rems like we've been doing throughout this series. And we've added the background image, which happens to be the Saiyan nav image. We've got a background size of cover, and we've got a background position in the Y to bottom to get it into the right place. And as you can see, we've added a box shadow to it as well. So once we saved it all, how does it look? So I would say that this is working quite well already. Okay, we've got the text hiding up in the corner here, but at least we can see it. And the image is in the right place. Well, it's the right size, dimensions. We've got the nice shadow. However, its actual Y position is out. As we can see here, it is below the navigation, and we actually want it behind the navigation. So when we talk about this in web design, a bit like you talk about in loads of other graphic applications, we talk about Z indexing, and essentially we want this with a lower Z index than the navigation, so it will appear behind it. In case you've forgotten, the navigation itself has a semi-transparent background, so this will show through. However, we don't actually need to use Z indexing to get this to work. What we're going to do is to use a relative positioning and a negative margin. So let's see what that code looks like. So we are already aware of position relative and how we've used it before. However, when we use a negative margin, what we're actually doing is moving that element in that direction, okay? So we're sort of actually pulling it into the direction of the margin. In this case, we're using a negative 15 rem, which translates to negative 150 pixels. This is of course assuming that we are still using a base font of 10 pixels. So let's have a look. If we refresh the page, there you go. You see it's perfectly behind. We can see the semi-transparent background as well, everything where it should be. Well, when we say everything where it should be, obviously the text here is in the wrong place. And this is a nice and simple piece of work to do. So it's another little mini challenge for you. Things that you'll need to know in order to do this. Number one, we're making a rule for the class main add text. Since we've used position relative for the actual parent, in this case, the main add, we can actually use position absolute to position the text within the card itself. We want to have the text centered aligned. It should also be the color of the second color variable that we've been using in the series. And we want a font size of 6 rem. So pause this video, since the solution is going to be in 3, 2, 1 now. So here we have the code that we need to do. The important thing to note here maybe is the fact that I did play about with the left and top values just to get it so where I thought it looked a bit better. So it doesn't quite match what we saw in Figma, but it'd be close enough. All of the other information we see here should now all be common sense and straightforward for us. Again, we should go and have a look at it though. So a quick refresh, and there we have the text. It's looking pretty decent. Just to compare it to here, to me, they look pretty much the same. So now it's time to do the nav buttons. Now just a quick look in Figma, and we can see we want the buttons roughly in the center of the advert and just a little bit off the bottom vertically. So wanting both, which is having the buttons just slightly off the bottom, but horizontally aligned in the center, can be a bit difficult. And this here is my solution to it. If we use position absolute instead of relative, we wouldn't be able to do the auto centering that we've used here. And having it centered in the middle is quite important if we're looking at perhaps varying the number of links that we're going to have. You see that we've used a max width value of 12%. We could have gone bigger. 12% worked well here, but it works nicely for us in this one. It just looked right visually. Now, you also note that we've added a border here as well. And this is just so that we can actually physically see it. And then we've used a top or center 5 rem to push it down the advert so that it is where we want it to be. And let's just see what this looks like. So this black line here is the border that we gave it, okay? Again, it's just there temporary, just so we can see what we are doing. Now, some of you may be thinking that we could have got the same effect with a top margin on this rather than using the top value. In other words, using something like this layout. However, if we look at the result of this, we can see we get a result that we were not expecting. And this is because it is using relative positioning of a child, of a parent that is also relatively positioned. And as we can see, it calls for some issues. There is a workaround this, which would be to add a div in between them, like this in the HTML. So this is the solution, as you can see, where we have a div with a class of absolute, and there's the closing div of it there. So this is a child of the main ad, but a parent to the internals. And by having this in the CSS set with a position of absolute and nothing else, it would allow the children to be placed in a relative position. Now, this is a very useful trick to remember, so please don't forget it. However, since I've found a workaround, we're going to use my workaround because sometimes this may not be a possibility for whatever reason. So there we are again, the code as it should be without that additional div. So now it's time to deal with the links themselves. So here's the code for the link. As you can see in the links, which is the nav, I have reset the margin and the positioning. So we're using inline blocks for our hyperlinks. We're going to a simple width and height of 15 pixels, which just seems to be about the right size. And it is a border, as you can see, using black, which is the tertiary color. And this is the clever little trick with a border radius of 50%, which creates a perfect circle for us, which is just what we want. Okay, and then we've just added a 5 pixel margin to the left, just to give them a little bit of separation. So time to save and view. And here we can see the slideshow looks basically almost perfect, with the only real exception there is to have that, or at least one of these links filled in, showing us that that is the active link. So we'll go back into the CSS and do that now. So here's the code that we need. Okay, as you remember, back over here, we did give it a active. And so that is a rule that we're applying. And all we're doing is giving that a background color, which basically fills in the circle. So again, we should save it. And of course, we should view it. And hopefully, yeah, there you go. You can see it's filled in. And now it looks like it's a proper slideshow. And basically it just doesn't have A, the other slides, or B, the code to actually make it work. But I assure you, this is a perfect setup for one. So how could we actually get it to work? As I said before, it'd be far better if the advert slide itself was a single image, as in any text, any pictures are all integrated into one image and put onto the slide itself. Now, a CSS only route is extremely doable, and actually has been for, well, over 5 years now, even though not many people do it, and there are obviously good reasons why people don't. And we can do different variations on this, which includes the classic slideshow version and a carousel look as well. And I will be looking at doing a few videos or a series of videos on this at a later date. However, it should be pointed out that the CSS required for this is not beginner level CSS, and generally you require a good understanding of CSS animations as well as using delays as the timer for the rotation of the slides. The JavaScript way with image-based slides is very easy, and there are many different solutions for it. But essentially we would create a function that changes the opacity of the slide and keep track of what slide is actually visible. Again, we could use a timer trigger to fade in and out, along with using a click action on these links over here to run the slides out of sequence. We can also carousel them by using a mask. This is something, again, you can research yourself and try it, or wait a bit for that series to come out. So with the design element of the slideshow done, this page looks like it's complete compared to what we've got it in Figma. Admittedly, we haven't yet done the animations that we plan to do on these, but again, because that's advanced, we're going to leave that for a little while and do some more pages first. There is, however, one slight issue with this page, and that is how long it will take to actually download this page. Even when you're using your local web server, the download and rendering time is very long. And that is what we're going to deal with in the next video. So again, as always, please make sure you like and subscribe so that you don't miss out, and also hit that notification button. Okay, so regarding this video though, my job here is done. Thank you for seeing me all the way. If you like this video, whack that like button. If I've earned your patronage, then please hit that subscribe button whilst you're at it. As always, if there's a video you want me to do, let me know. If you want a shout out in one of the videos or want to ask me anything, again, just whack that in the comments, as I do read every comment. See you next time. This is Zen, signing off.